The apartment was quiet, but the kind of quiet that presses against your ears, making every sound sharper, heavier. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall city windows, catching on the polished wood floors and throwing golden rectangles across the room. Outside, the city hummed with life, the distant honking of cars, the soft murmur of people walking past cafes, but inside, the air was thick with something else. Tension. Regret. Arrogance. He stood by the edge of the living room, one hand in his pocket, the other tapping lightly against the frame of the glass door that led to the balcony. He looked at her, not really looking, more like scanning, judging. His face carried that easy confidence men wear when they think the world is theirs, the kind that doesn't notice the cost of its own arrogance. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice flat, deliberate. "I'm done. I need space. I need freedom. And you're just holding me back." She sat on the couch, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her dress, a soft ivory shade, caught the sunlight, but she made no move to adjust it. Her hair fell over her shoulders like a silent curtain, framing a face that was calm, almost serene. She didn't speak. Not a word. But her eyes, those steady, unwavering eyes, held a quiet strength that didn't need words to be felt. He scoffed, pacing a little. "Don't sit there like nothing matters. I'm serious. I can't keep pretending anymore. You're just not enough. Not for me. Not for what I want." A slow, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips, not mocking, not bitter, but knowing. He didn't notice it. He never would, at least not yet. Before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this story with friends, because you don't want to miss what happens next. The room seemed to shrink around him, though he didn't realize it. The walls of their home, once familiar and comforting, now felt like a stage, and he was the only actor who didn't understand the script. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the floor, shadows that seemed to reach toward him, reminding him, silently, that some forces, some people, cannot be contained, cannot be underestimated. He turned abruptly, heading toward the door as if his exit could erase the moment, as if walking away could rewrite history. "I'm leaving," he said again, sharper this time, as if repeating it would make it easier to believe. She didn't respond. She simply watched him go, the light catching the faint glimmer of determination in her eyes. And though the apartment now echoed only with the sound of the closing door, the real story, the one he had ignored, dismissed, laughed at, was only just beginning to stir. Outside, the city lights began to flicker awake, indifferent to his departure, but her silence carried a quiet power, a warning, a promise, that no one, not even him, could truly measure what she was capable of. The city streets were alive with the golden haze of early evening, the sky streaked with burnt orange and deep purple as the sun began its slow descent. Traffic hummed along the avenues, and the faint scent of roasted street food drifted through the air. He walked down the apartment steps, his jacket slung casually over one shoulder, a small smirk playing on his lips as though he were carrying the weight of the world, or rather, shedding it. A group of friends waited at the corner, leaning against sleek cars that reflected the setting sun. Their laughter mingled with the sounds of the bustling street, carefree and oblivious to the tension that had just left the apartment above. He approached them, his steps confident, even exaggerated, like a man performing for an audience. "Gentlemen," he began, spreading his arms wide, "I'm free. Finally, free." He let the words linger, savoring the self-satisfaction that danced in his chest. "No more," he glanced upward, almost theatrically, as if speaking to ghosts, "no more holding back. No more pretending to care about someone who, well, let's just say it's over." One of his friends clapped him on the back. "About time, man. She was, well, you know." They laughed, filling the air with the kind of careless bravado that comes only when you think life is simple and predictable. He laughed too, but inside, a small, unacknowledged unease fluttered. Not at her, not yet, but at the sudden quiet of his own apartment behind him. For a brief moment, he thought he saw her silhouette at the window, just a shadow framed by the fading sunlight. She didn't wave, didn't call out, didn't beg him to stay. She simply watched, calm, composed, as though the entire scene were part of some performance only she understood. He shook the thought off, turning to his friends with renewed bravado. "I mean it," he said. "No regrets. She's nothing to me now." Unseen by him, the world behind those walls had already begun to move. She, seated with quiet dignity, her hands folded in front of her like the hands of someone ready to claim what was hers, allowed a faint smile to tug at the corners of her lips. She didn't need him to understand, didn't need him to acknowledge her strength. That was the beauty of it, her power was silent, unseen by those blinded by their own arrogance. And so he walked on, striding into the evening with the illusion of victory, boasting to friends, celebrating freedom he didn't truly understand. Meanwhile, the first stirrings of a reckoning had already begun, quiet but unstoppable, waiting patiently for the moment when his ignorance would meet reality. The city lights flickered on one by one, indifferent to his parade, yet illuminating her window, a subtle reminder, underestimating her would be his gravest mistake. The city skyline glimmered under the soft morning light, glass towers reflecting 1,000 hues of gold and amber. Inside one of the tallest buildings, the hum of computers, the quiet shuffle of papers, and the low murmur of strategy meetings filled the air. This was not the home she had left behind, this was her domain, her empire. She walked through the sleek corridors of her construction company with the kind of quiet confidence that demanded attention without asking for it. Her heels clicked softly on the polished floor, a steady rhythm that matched the certainty in her step. Employees paused briefly, heads nodding respectfully as she passed, knowing instinctively that she was not just a figurehead, but the pulse of the entire organization. Her office was expansive, lined with architectural models and large digital screens displaying active projects across the city. She sat behind her desk, composed, reviewing contracts with meticulous care. Each signature she placed carried weight, each decision shaped not only the company but the lives of hundreds of people who relied on her judgment. A business partner leaned in, holding a tablet with blueprints. "We can either expand the downtown project this quarter, or focus on the suburban complex," he said, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. She didn't look up immediately. Her pen hovered, then she traced a line on the blueprint, her voice calm but decisive. "Downtown. The timing aligns with the council's new infrastructure plan. And I want the community engagement program launched before the first foundation is poured." Her team scribbled notes, murmuring affirmations, impressed not just by her clarity but by the quiet authority she carried. There was no need to shout, no need to dominate the room, her presence alone made everyone listen. Outside her window, the city thrummed with life, unaware that the woman who seemed so delicate in a personal context wielded such power over steel, concrete, and ambition. She picked up her phone, briefly pausing to glance at a message from someone in her personal circle. A small, almost hidden smile touched her lips. The world saw her as composed, even gentle, but behind this calm surface was a mind sharper than anyone could guess. A junior employee peeked nervously into her office. "Excuse me, Ms. Aisha, the contractors are waiting for your final approval on the new site plan." She nodded, rising with graceful authority. "Thank you, I'll join them in 5 minutes. Let's make sure everything is flawless." She left the office, walking down the bustling hallways where her presence was both respected and revered. Every step, every glance, every quiet decision reflected the truth, she was not to be underestimated. And somewhere in the back of the city, a man who had dismissed her would soon learn just how unstoppable she truly was. The conference room smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh coffee, a subtle undercurrent of ambition hanging in the air. Large windows framed the bustling city below, cars weaving through avenues like veins pumping life through the concrete jungle. He stepped into the room, blazer slightly wrinkled, confidence brimming, but only the kind that comes from ignorance. "Morning, everyone," he said, voice loud, eager. "I'm here to discuss the new project proposal. I'm expecting quick approval. Let's get this moving." Heads turned politely, papers shuffled, and murmurs of acknowledgement floated around the room. But something was off. There was a quiet intensity in the atmosphere, a subtle electricity that made his bravado falter ever so slightly. He glanced at the head of the table, and froze. There she was. Not timid, not waiting in the shadows, not someone he could dismiss. She sat tall, perfectly composed, a tailored suit hugging her frame, eyes sharp and unwavering. The same woman he had abandoned, the same woman he thought he knew, now radiated authority in a way that stole the room's attention without a word. "You must be Mr. Ahmed," she said, voice calm but with a weight that made him stumble over his own tongue. "I've heard a lot about your enthusiasm. I'm Aisha, the owner of this company." The words hit him like a thunderclap. His jaw went slack, heart hammering, as if the ground beneath him had shifted. He stumbled through a half-hearted greeting, a forced smile failing to mask disbelief. "Why you own this?" She nodded once, deliberately, letting the silence stretch. Around them, employees watched discreetly, noting the rare crack in his armor. "Yes. And this meeting," she continued, flipping open a folder, "is not just to approve a project. It's to see how well you handle responsibility when the stakes are real. Are you capable of working under someone who doesn't underestimate you?" He swallowed hard, his mind racing. Everything he thought he knew. Every assumption he had made about her power, or lack thereof, was crumbling in real time. His chest tightened, pride clashing violently with the sudden, undeniable truth. She leaned back, eyes meeting his with unflinching calm. "You thought leaving me was easy. You thought I was insignificant. But here we are, and now, you see the reality." The hum of the city below seemed distant, irrelevant. All that mattered was the flip in the room, the unspoken lesson echoing louder than any words. He had underestimated her, and that mistake could cost him more than he had ever imagined. For the first time in years, he felt small. And she was unstoppable. The room was quieter now, the hum of the city outside fading into a distant buzz, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She stood near the large floor-to-ceiling window, the city skyline behind her casting long, sharp shadows across the sleek office floor. He remained rooted near the table, eyes darting, chest tight, as the realization of his misjudgment sank deeper with each passing second. "You thought this would be easy," she began, voice calm but edged with steel. "You thought leaving me meant I had no power. That I was insignificant." He opened his mouth, then closed it again, searching for a response, any response, that wouldn't betray the shock coursing through him. I didn't know," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "You didn't know," she repeated, stepping closer, her presence commanding yet composed. "And that's the problem, isn't it? You never looked beyond what you assumed. You never saw me, my abilities, my determination, my success, because it didn't fit into the little story you had written in your mind." Her words were precise, deliberate, each one a scalpel cutting through the layers of his arrogance. He felt small, exposed, as though a veil had been lifted and the truth of her power was blinding him. He wanted to interrupt, to justify, to reclaim some fragment of control, but the room itself seemed to reject his bravado, leaving him vulnerable. She walked slowly around the desk, each step measured, graceful, a silent demonstration of authority. "Do you see now?" she asked softly, yet with a weight that made him flinch. "Do you see what you underestimated? Do you understand what it means to dismiss someone's strength?" He swallowed hard, realizing the magnitude of the mistake he had made. His chest tightened with a mix of regret, shame, and awe. I had no idea," he murmured, voice hollow. Her eyes softened just slightly, not in pity, but in measured acknowledgement of her victory. "You should have," she said. "But ignorance doesn't excuse arrogance. Your underestimation was costly, not just for you, but for everything you thought you knew about me." He nodded slowly, each movement heavy, as though the weight of her words pressed against his shoulders. In that charged silence, he understood, not just intellectually, but viscerally, that she was unstoppable, not because of force or intimidation, but because of intellect, resilience, and an unshakable confidence that no one, not even him, could ignore. The city lights outside blinked on, reflecting off the glass panels, but the only illumination that mattered was the one in her eyes, clear, unwavering, and a silent declaration. She had reclaimed her narrative, and he was no longer the center of it. The city hummed with life outside the sleek glass walls of her office, but inside, the atmosphere was electric with focus and precision. Employees moved with purpose, blueprints in hand, laptops open, voices low but confident. Every corner of the company reflected growth, projects moving forward, contracts signed, and deadlines met with quiet efficiency. She walked through the halls, observing her empire in motion, a subtle smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Meanwhile, he sat in a nearby conference room, his polished suit suddenly feeling heavy, his once confident posture slumping. He had come hoping to secure a lucrative contract, imagining that charm and persistence could sway the decision. But reality hit him hard. The deal was already under review, every clause meticulously scrutinized by her team, every detail aligned with standards only she could enforce. His objections were politely dismissed, each counterpoint met with calm, precise reasoning. Mr. Ahmed, one of her senior managers said, glancing at the clock, "We appreciate your proposal, but it does not meet the strategic priorities Ms. Aisha has outlined. Perhaps you can revisit the plans for future opportunities." He blinked, swallowing hard. I don't understand. We've worked together for years. She appeared then, quietly, standing behind the team. And yet, she said softly, almost conversationally, years of experience do not replace foresight, diligence, or respect for the work itself. Perhaps this will be a learning moment. His face paled. He opened his mouth, but words faltered, inadequate against the reality he now faced. Pride, once so unshakable, crumbled in silence. Across the company, she moved seamlessly from one meeting to another, signing off on project expansions, approving new site plans, and checking in with employees. Her presence was a steadying force, a reminder that leadership was not about fear or dominance, but clarity, vision, and consistency. Later, she stepped onto the balcony overlooking the city, the sun setting in a cascade of pinks and oranges. Construction cranes swayed gently in the distance, half-completed buildings rising proudly, a tangible testament to her success. The wind caught her hair, and she let herself breathe deeply, knowing that every decision, every calculated risk, had built not only a thriving business but also an unshakable independence. Inside, he left the office quietly, contract denied, pride humbled, and the sharp lesson etched into his consciousness: arrogance blinds, and underestimating others comes at a cost. Outside, the city pulsed on, indifferent to his defeat, but inside her world, she had won, not with spectacle or confrontation, but with patience, skill, and unwavering strength. The sun had dipped low over the city, spilling golden light across glass towers and casting long shadows on the streets below. From her office balcony, she watched the city pulse with life, honking cars, pedestrians weaving through the evening hustle, the distant glint of a crane swinging over a construction site. It was all familiar, yet she saw it differently now. Life had a rhythm she had learned to navigate, not with haste or arrogance, but with patience and strategy. She leaned on the railing, her hands folded calmly, eyes tracing the silhouettes of buildings she had helped raise. A gentle breeze swept through, lifting strands of her hair, carrying with it the faint scent of jasmine from a nearby terrace garden. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself breathe, letting herself feel the weight of what she had accomplished. Her mind wandered back to the early days, the quiet evenings alone after a difficult separation, the nights she spent poring over contracts and plans while the world outside seemed oblivious to her struggle. She remembered the doubts, the sneers, the assumptions others had made about her abilities. And now, as she stood atop her empire, those memories didn't sting, they strengthened her resolve. A soft chime from her office door pulled her attention. One of her junior employees, holding a folder with project updates, appeared briefly, a nervous smile on her face. "Ms. Aisha, everything's ready for tomorrow's groundbreaking ceremony," she said. She turned, eyes meeting the young woman's, and smiled warmly. "Thank you. Your work made this possible. Never forget that your dedication shapes more than just buildings, it shapes futures." The employee nodded, inspired, and walked away. Alone again, she allowed herself a small, reflective smile. Life had taught her that success wasn't just about strength, it was about wisdom, foresight, and knowing when to remain calm while the world rushed past in judgment. Her gaze drifted to the distant horizon, where the last rays of sun kissed the tops of the skyscrapers. Somewhere below, a man who had underestimated her was learning the hard way that assumptions could crumble in an instant. But she didn't dwell on revenge or resentment. That wasn't her style. Instead, she carried a quiet power, the kind that comes from knowing one's worth and walking forward without looking back. As the city lights flickered on, one by one, she whispered softly to herself, almost like a lesson for anyone willing to listen: never underestimate anyone. Life has a way of surprising those who think they've already won. And with that, she turned back toward her office, her steps measured, confident, unstoppable, ready for whatever challenges tomorrow might bring. The city below had no idea who truly ruled its skyline, but she did.